How would a Palestinian state realistically come to be? Hi there. With the Israel-Palestine conflict flaring up again, I feel more and more people in the West are vouching for a two-state solution. While I do in principle support this, I am wondering how this could be realized. Specifically, how does one build a Palestinian state? In order for any Palestinian state-making process to be accepted by Israel and the Palestinians, I would say it must at least apply the following criteria. 1. The goal must be a stable Palestinian state that is not hostile to Israel and cannot spiral into hostility. I'm thinking a constitutional democracy would be best for that, but I am open to other ideas. 2. Likewise, Israel must adhere to some previous agreement of borders and leave the West Bank. All settlers must move into Israel proper. 3. The state-making process must be guided by an Israel-friendly country and likewise a country the Palestinians can trust. I'm thinking Turkey or Jordan, but very curious about other ideas. 4. The most difficult point: Hamas must be exterminated. Who will do this? Israel seems like the only possible candidate willing and capable of doing this, and I think the odds are against them. Bonus point: I'd like to see every war criminal on either side sent to The Hague and receive a fair trial and appropriate sentence. If you disagree with any of these criteria, or think I am missing one, please let me know and why. How do you and I am especially interested in Palestinian and Israeli opinions see a successful two-state solution come to be? Please be civil. I don't see a viable solution in removing the settlers from the West Bank. Unfortunately, the area is too far gone. Some 500,000 Israeli settlers are currently situated in the occupied territory, and it's highly unlikely that any prime minister would take the step of removing them. It's more likely a civil war would break out. The forceful eviction of only 9,000 settlers from Gaza in 2005 was already a huge headache. Seeing as there are currently 0 democracies in the Middle East except for the extremely Western Israel, I highly doubt Palestinians would ever want or feel satisfied with some kind of democracy. Time travel. Francis Fukuyama wrote a pair of books describing how every government in the world came about. Different nations all took different approaches, but there are about 6 core ideas that are essential and common to all governments. The most important one is to establish a monopoly on violence so that violence can become highly restricted and not chaotic when used. Things like legitimacy, economic growth and social mobilization are impossible to achieve without first having a degree of peace and stability. Honestly, at this point a military strongman able to suppress Islamists would be the best bet for a Palestinian state, able to negotiate firmly but fairly with Israel, and someone to be trusted as a neighbor, but able to put Islamists down when inevitably they try to destroy any peace progress. However, there is nobody like that. There was one in Gaza, but he was crushed in the Palestinian civil war in Gaza. Egypt and Jordan taking care of Palestine for a while would be a second best bet, but they definitely don't want to touch anything Palestinian. Hamas belongs to the Muslim Brotherhood, and it's too powerful. It would have to start with Palestinians formally acknowledging Israel's right to exist as a nation. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm skeptical Palestinians are willing to accept whatever peace offering Israel has. After the massacre, I can't imagine an Israeli peace offer being as good as what they were offered in 2000 and 2008. Also, Palestinians have been manipulated to think that full right of return is possible and necessary for a state. The reality is that it's not. So I imagine this conflict raging on in perpetuity. Also, the Jordanians really don't like them. In face Jordan is a real apartheid against their second-class Palestinian population who they deny rights and real citizenship even though they're a majority. There's a reason they and the Egyptians refuse to take them back. Something sensible in this conflict. How refreshing. I think your ideas are sound. Netanyahu and religious zealots would have to go. I think security would be the biggest sticking point. How would you convince the Israelis that a third neutral party would guarantee their safety? There's also the question of Hezbollah. But maybe that would be for another day. Turkey and Jordan are hostile to Israel. We won't accept any negotiations from either of them. Sorry that I don't have a response for you as an Israeli. I just don't believe in any solution anymore. The 600,000 settlements will never transfer to Israel. It's insane. There are complete cities over there. It's not like a small tent camp. Look over the city of Ariel. Check Wikipedia for the amount of settlers and settlers' towns and cities. Two possible ways. Some kind of federation, small nation building that would have to take place after years of denazification, using this term as a placeholder for some kind of de-escalation of jihad. Education and economic development over the course of probably decades, or take back Jordan. As it stands, there's no real way of doing either of these things without massive reforms and leadership changes and changes in outlook. Such a state would also probably not be allowed to have any real military force. It can't, plain and simple. Israel have hundreds of settlements in West Bank now with more than 700,000 people living there. They are invested too much to just give it up and pull out. There is no chance of statehood for Palestinians anymore. We would need a global technocracy to remove religion from the equation. There is no separate but equal. We should all be administered by the same scientific standards. A two-state solution with two disconnected territories cannot work. The only way Palestine can come into existence is by war. The only solution I see is money. Some god-awful reparation from Israel to the Palestinian people. Gaza is Israeli and so is much of the West Bank. Palestinians receive some kind of stipend. And they start again away from each other. ME countries are asked to take an allotted amount of refugees and are compensated. I don't think two-state is possible. In my view, Gaza would be returned to Egypt. And the West Bank becomes an autonomous region inside a greater Israel. From river to sea. But for the Israelis, no way Israel will permit the creation of a hostile state on the West Bank of the Jordan River. I supported a Palestinian state prior to October 7th. But I don't see it happening anytime soon anymore. It would take a lot of diplomacy, the support of the UK and US, and a ton of lawyering. Maybe it still happens in the future. But no respectable nation of authority is going to award Palestinians for the October 7th terrorist attack by presenting them with the two-state solution now. If they'd even go for it anyway. It can late for that now. Now if Egypt, Jordan, and Lebanon were to give them the peaceful friendly to Israel, never will always be at war. Till one is destroyed. West Bank is close to being a Palestinian state, but Gaza is far away. Please be civil? As soon as you mention extermination, you lose the right to an opinion. The only viable solution is a one-state solution and heavily tightening the right of return for both sides. One-state solution. End to apartheid. True democracy. Reconciliation. Right to return. Anything else is just a prelude to another conflict. Edit to the people downvoting me. Please share your thoughts. Palestine is for Palestinians from the river to the sea. Palestine will be free.